Gaming news is often completely, utterly absorbed with AAA titles. But for a while, we've been talking about how there needs to be more focus on AA games. And you know what they say about being the change you wish to see. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 upcoming AA games that excite us. At number 10, we have Inzoi, a life sim that's coming to us via publisher Krafton, which you may or may not recognize. They're actually the publisher behind some pretty big games, PUBG being probably the biggest. And although you may or may not love the game, the Callisto Protocol was pretty omnipresent when it was in its hype cycle, at very least. Inzoi has you creating and controlling Zois within a big old open world. Now, are Zois a direct analog for Sims? Maybe a little bit, but they do maybe a little more. It seems like they're not designed just to be kind of flat and maybe even funny. It looks a little more serious. It's built with Unreal 5. It's got some pretty good graphics, and, you know, it gives you a lot of options. The Zois are going to have over 250 options for appearance, personality traits, lifespans, just like a lot of stuff. Every Zoi is going to be, to some extent, quite unique. And I hate to keep comparing it to The Sims because I think that it looks a little bit more complex. But I think that's probably the way to go. If you can imagine The Sims with more complex simulation of character behaviors and interactions, as well as much more complex and realistic graphics, that's what this looks like it's going to be. Where I think The Sims is kind of unintentionally hokey, to be fun and funny type situation, this looks more like an organic, dynamic ecosystem where one of the goals is emergent storylines even. I think that it looks pretty interesting. If it delivers on what it looks like it certainly is a sandbox, but it's kind of attempting to push that a lot further and make something into more of a living, breathing world. I hope they nail it, because honestly, that'd be really cool. Inzoi is going to launch in early access quite a while from now, to be frank. It was originally planned for release late this year. It's going to be March 28th, 2025, and that's going to be on PC. At number 9, we have Ark 2, the highly anticipated sequel to Ark Survival Evolved. So they're looking to kind of redefine Ark by giving it a lot of new features and enhancements over the previous. If you're unfamiliar, imagine a sort of prehistoric world with dinosaurs and other creatures. It's a survival game with a big open environment. Very pretty this time around. I think the previous one was not bad or anything, but it looks a lot better this time. You have traversal mechanics. You got free climbing, parkour, sliding, swinging, all that type of stuff. They're very proud of the movement mechanics, and I think they have a good reason to be. But Ark 2 is sort of revamping its combat to have a more Souls-like melee. I know people get crazy when I say Souls-like, but that's what they're going for, a more Souls-like melee system. They want to emphasize skill through the blocks, the dodges, the combos, the staggers, all that stuff. You know it, and I think that's a good idea, because that really sets Ark apart from every other survival game out there. There isn't a Souls-like survival game, really, which is actually kind of crazy to say, but I can't really think of one off the top of my head. That doesn't mean they're jettisoning like the crafting element of it, but they have added a component-based mechanic, so you have a much wider range of distinct crafting elements, I guess you would call it, which then offers millions of possible combinations for items. And also, Vin Diesel is the protagonist. I don't know if that's a good thing for you or a bad thing. I think it's kind of a neutral thing. I like Vin Diesel. I don't think it really matters that he's the protagonist, but I think that's fun. So I'm excited to play this one. I think it looks like a big jump from the previous Ark game in a lot of directions that I really like. So I'm excited to play it when it releases later this year on Xbox Series and PC with, and this is a good thing, day one availability on Xbox Game Pass. At number 8, it's Kingmakers, an action strategy sandbox game developed by Redemption Road Games and published by Tiny Build. So this game is one that I'm just beyond psyched about. It's a medieval warfare game in which you are actually from 500 years in the future and have modern weapons. I don't know how this hasn't been a game yet, to be frank, but I am beyond happy it's becoming one. The idea of the game is you're going to be altering the course of history to prevent an apocalypse, but to be frank, I don't care at all. There is nothing about the premise that matters here. It's the mechanic and what you're going to do. You have massive real-time simulated battles with thousands of soldiers, and you have like shotguns and missile launchers and shit. Frankly, it's one of those games where I don't really care if it's even that advanced of combat, but it looks like they're actually doing a pretty good job with it. They're touting the level of simulation and combat fidelity. So, I mean, even if they deliver basically half on how they've talked about it, I'm okay with that. Also, what's fun about it, you can switch between third-person shooter and top-down strategic. I think that's a good idea. And we're also going to get what I think is going to be fun as hell, cooperative multiplayer for up to 4 players. How could that not be good? Like, there's a good reason why this is probably going to be a massively successful game. And it's also a good argument for why AA games are important because, again, this is something that I really have not seen before. I don't know why, but the AAA gaming industry just has too much money involved to take these kinds of risks, although I'm going to say it's probably not a huge risk. It's probably, again, going to do very well. But I'm excited for when it releases later in 2024 on PC via Steam and Epic. It's just, I mean, how could this not be good? They would have to really screw this up for it to be not good. Moving on to number 7, we have Subnautica 2, the eagerly awaited sequel to, I mean, pretty much the universally acclaimed underwater survival game by Unknown Worlds. Obviously, the idea is to build on the exploration of its predecessor, and it looks like they've added a lot of pretty good ideas. That's, I think, going to make the game good for both newcomers and returning fans. It's a new ocean planet, but it is an ocean planet, so it's not like it's going to be super unfamiliar or anything, but you got your biomes, you got your ecosystems, you got your towering underwater cliffs and coral fields, and, I mean, it's vast. That's not new, but what is new is multiplayer co-op. I think that having 4 players who can go out, do the Subnautica thing, survive, explore, etc., that's going to be good. That's a very good addition for this type of a thing. Like, Subnautica is a concept that is custom tailored for teamwork and coordination, to be frank. I don't know if anybody has any experience doing real life diving. I don't, but I know people who do. And the thing they're always talking about is coordination and how important it is. And you don't go diving alone. To me, this like drops in perfectly with that. They've also overhauled the building system for better customization. I mean, it looks like a meaningful jump from the first game. And I love the first game. I still boot up the first game from time to time and, you know, go off for a swim in the unknown. It's not like it's particularly unknown to me anymore, but it is beautiful and fun. And I'm excited for doing it with other people in a new world that looks better and the capabilities are expanded. And Subnautica 2 is coming to early access in 2025. It's going to be on PC and Xbox Series through Xbox Game Preview. Moving on to number 6, it's The Alters, a survival adventure game developed by 11-Bit Studios, which, if you recall, they have created the very good games This War of Mine and Frostpunk. This is a game that is more heavily oriented towards base building and resource management. I know that we have some survival games, like, let's say, Sons of the Forest, that emphasize very different things. But we have a pretty interesting story here. You take on the role of Jan Dolsky, who's a worker, lands on an inhospitable planet, something you wouldn't want, obviously. But what you probably, couldn't do yourself is that Jan ends up being able to create different versions of themselves, which the game calls alters, which embodies different life choices and skill sets. They're not clones. They have distinct personalities. They have different backgrounds, and they're all shaped by different paths that Jan could have taken in her life. It's an interesting idea, and I think will yield a different story. But the real core of the game is managing a mobile base and staying ahead of the sunrise, which is deadly on this planet. I don't know exactly how she figures that out yet, but those backgrounds that I talked about with the alters come into play because you give them different tasks based on their skills, and their skills are based on different life backgrounds. Like, for instance, they've mentioned that, say, an alter who pursued a career in botany, for instance, can cultivate food supplies, and an engineer, Jan, can upgrade the base, stuff like that. It's a game that, to me, just looks like a really interesting and different take on sort of survival adventure type games because the mechanic is just completely unique to any of those games. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else that they've disguised as a completely new mechanic. Heck, I don't know. I hope it's the former, not the latter. I have a feeling it will be, to be completely clear. The Altars is coming Q1 2025. It's going to come out on PC, Xbox Series, and PS5. Moving on to number 5, we have Clair Obscur Expedition 33, a turn-based RPG from Sandfall Interactive, published by Kepler Interactive. So I say turn-based because it looks kind of essentially that, but it also blends a couple of interesting ideas, some real-time mechanics, and some strategy. They're touting this as a unique combat system. I mean, you have your RPG normal stuff, like your distinct builds for each character, putting gear, stats, skills, implementing character synergies, etc., etc. It's stuff that you know of. But during the turn-based battles, the real-time actions that come in are going to be like dodging, parrying, and countering, which actually adds some ultimately Souls-derived ideas into a turn-based RPG battle system, and I think that's very interesting. I mean, I'm not saying we've never seen anything like that. I can remember turn-based battle systems with some form of like reaction-type gameplay mechanics added in. Sea of Stars had different timings of buttons that could prolong attacks, etc., stuff like that. But this sounds a little more extensive. The story is that there is this paintress who every year puts a number on this monolith, and everybody who is that age just simply vanishes from existence. Basically, the number is going to be at 33. You're an expedition to stop this crap from happening. And I'm just going to say this. I said this previously. I do think it's going to end up being that the paintress has something to do with the expeditions that have gone out to stop her. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those twists where you realize you're the baddies all along, and you've prolonged this thing somehow by trying to stop it or something like that. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I just want to call it because I like being right. If I'm wrong, we shall bury this and never talk of it again. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is coming out in 2025 for Xbox Series, PS5, and PC. At number 4, we have The Precinct, a neo-noir action sandbox police game coming to us by way of Fallen Tree Games. Set in 1983 in the crime-ridden streets of a city called Averno City. Your officer, Nick Cordell Jr., a rookie who is an idealist and thinks he's going to clean up the town. We've heard it all before. It doesn't go well for those folks. Anyway, so it's an homage to classic cop movies, intending to bring us some pretty detailed police simulation and some action gameplay. You patrol the streets, respond to procedurally generated crimes. Those could be very minor, like parking violations, or very major, like gang shootouts. You're able to figure out what you want to do in response. You could be brutal, you can be ruthless, you can be a real nice dude. I don't know if I would recommend doing that in response to a gang shootout, but you know. You can also call in backup with a pretty in-depth support system. You got squad cars, spike strips, roadblocks, lots of different choices for handling various situations. The city itself, pretty damn cool. The way they have it set up, in a lot of ways, reminds me of Grand Theft Auto, but like old school Grand Theft Auto where it was top down. Obviously, it's not top down. It's a lot more detailed than that. And obviously, the game is the exact reverse to that. You're not thefting autos. You're stopping thefting of autos. Well, probably. I don't know. The Precinct looks like a pretty damn cool game. It's going to be something I'm certainly playing. It's coming out this year, Q4, and it's coming to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. At number 3, we have Blight Survival, a medieval cooperative action horror game brought to us by Hanier Studio. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's an alternate 14th century where there's zombies. It's a zombie game in the medieval times. It's also a roguelite and somewhat extraction-based. It looks like a nice blend of a few ideas. It's set amidst the backdrop of a war-torn sort of no man's land betwixt two kingdoms locked in conflict. Very normal medieval premise, but they're zombies. Your goal is to, stop it from happening, the zombies specifically. Exploration is going to be key in this one. You're going to be looking for loot in particular, but there's also going to be secrets and lore, that type of stuff. The roguelite elements mean each run is going to be different, and I like that, obviously. You have procedurally generated environments, different enemy placements, new weapons, armor, equipment, all unique. There's going to be 4-player co-op, and to be frank, frank, zombie games tend to lend some of the best 4-player co-op, and it's one of those Unreal 5 games. It looks like one of the good ones. I think we got a cool, immersive atmosphere. It doesn't overpromise. That's kind of why I said one of the good ones. It looks like a game that can happen. And on top of that, it looks like a very fun premise. Like all these medieval plus new thing premises, I think they're long overdue. Blight Survival doesn't have a confirmed release, but it is coming to PC sometime in the future. They've hinted at console releases, but they haven't committed to it. But yeah, I'm excited for this one. At number 2, we have the first Berserker, Khazan, where you play as Khazan. It's an action RPG coming to us from Nepal. It's set in the Dungeon and Fighter universe, and you are basically a legendary ancestor of all the slayers in that world. You're the first Berserker, you see. So what happens in this game is you have a big old victory, and then you're accused of treason, you're tortured, you're exiled to the snowy mountains, your tendons have been severed, you're pretty down in a rut at the start of this game. You then go on basically a journey to figure out what the truth, blah blah blah, seek vengeance, blah blah blah. You know the drill, right? So what we've got is somewhere between a hack and slash and a hardcore action game, with an emphasis on character progression and customizing Khazan's abilities. It's a pretty looking game, I have to say. Very different art direction. I think looks like a lot of fun. I'm not really particularly familiar with the Dungeon and Fighter universe, but if this is what it is, I'm there. The first Berserker Khazan is scheduled for 2025 for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. And finally, at number 1, we have Showa, American Story, an action RPG from Necom, and it's set in an alternate 1980s America, which is influenced by Japanese culture. Very interesting, I think. Somewhere between a post-apocalyptic adventure and a B-movie type situation. Not the Jerry Seinfeld one, I mean like an 80s B-movie. Sort of a kitschy horror situation. You assume the role of Choko Chigusa, who is a stunt woman in a teenage action movie who is killed and oddly enough revived from the dead. She wakes up, world is overrun with zombies. She doesn't know why, so goes on a journey to figure out what the hell happened and why the hell she is not dead. Predicting it right now, she has the exact same virus that the zombies do, but is somehow immune or is affected differently. That's not why you're playing this game. You're playing it because you want some fun combat. That's what this one looks like to me. You got swords, you got guns, you got giant drills. It's got some crazy looking stuff in it. I think that's pretty interesting. Obviously, as with basically every game that exists now, exploration is a big part of it. But it does merit the exploration. The world with this weird 80s Japanese pop culture blend / take on America with neon cityscapes and deserts and just crazy stuff. It looks interesting. You get an RV that you're going to traverse. It serves as your mobile base. You cook, you craft, you get some mini games. Honestly, it looks like a very gamey game, and I really like that. I want more gamey games. Showa American Story is coming out in 2025 to PS5 and PC. Was going to come out on PS4, isn't anymore. That's fine. I'm probably going to play it on PC anyways, so it's cool. This is a cool one. And that's all we've got for you today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.